job, right? Who'd want to be Prime Minister if you could be Foreign Minister?
Right on, right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Not that was ever an option for me to be anything else. But, yeah.
Thank you very much to the Wheeler Centre and the panel for a delightful discussion this evening. Look, I'm with you, Sally, on pessimism about the world situation at present. And I refer specifically to Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, and the South China Sea. Can I ask you to comment? None of those things were a result of anything that Donald Trump has done. I ascribe it mainly to the things that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and John Kerry have done. Could you comment on just two, the reset with Russia and Hillary's involvement in Libya and her comment about we came, we saw, he died. And just finally, I don't recall Stephen Harper actually assaulting anyone in the Canadian Parliament that such as Justin Trudeau did not that long ago.
Pick your bit of that.
I'll pick my bit on the Libya case because I think here this has been sort of overdone both ways. Libya was initially a genuine triumph for liberal internationalist forces of decency, stopping the march on Benghazi, stopping 20,000 people being killed, doing so with a non-contested Security Council resolution, not doing it as a coalition of the willing frolic, and producing a very successful result. If the world had reacted half as quickly and robustly in Rwanda or Srebrenica, we'd have 8,000 men and boys alive to this day in the Balkans, and we'd have 800,000 alive in Rwanda. The trouble is that turned to ashes very quickly in Libya because of some very poor policy decisions by the US administration, but more particularly the British and the French administrations. They were not content with treating it as a civilian protection operation. They determined they were going to make it a regime change operation, not learning any of the lessons from Iraq in 2003 and all the other misadventures of the past. That's what happened. They went in there. It wasn't a matter of failure of the aftermath of knocking off Gaddafi. They should never have gone in there without strong continuing Security Council support, which they just contemptuously dismissed. They said, we've got a mandate, we're going to run with it. And the trouble was, the failure in Libya led immediately to the paralysis in the Security Council as Syria was beginning to explode, because the countries forming the majority in the Security Council said there may be a case for sanctions, condemnation and all the rest of it against Assad in Syria, but we've watched what you've done when we give you half an inch of a mandate in Libya, you take a mile and run with it. And Syria has careered out of control ever since, and we've got a real problem in putting those pieces together. So, I mean, you're partially right that there was some element of American policy responsibility, but it was shared among the others, and in fact, America didn't take a leadership role in the Libyan case. They were very cautious about it. But, I mean, all these things, I mean, to blame the Americans, you can certainly blame the Americans for grotesque errors in Iraq in 2003, which created so much of the environment we've subsequently seen there. And I'm not just singing an old song, it's just true. Yeah, I know, but sorry, Chilcot, 12.5 million words or something, it sort of proves the point that we all knew anyway, didn't it? But I'm sorry, if you're going to approach it that way, there's no answer. But I couldn't possibly begin to blame Obama for any of that stuff. It's just not there in terms of the factual foundation.
I agree with Gareth absolutely about Libya. I think I'd agree with him in every nuance about Libya. I'd just make two other points. I think the first Obama administration was much better on national security than the second. The first Obama administration had big beasts in defence and state, Robert Gates and Hillary Clinton. They were big beasts. Obama looked that in the eye. He said, I appointed a first-rate team in my first administration. By God, I'm not going to make that same mistake in my second administration. And he appointed absolute ciphers and lightweights. And I do think he had a very ineffective second term. But I don't want to, for a minute, end this discussion by sort of re-embarking on a full theological debate about the Middle East. But I'd just offer you this perspective. Just consider in this light, and I understand there's a massive debate, I'm only going to do 2 sentences on it. Iraq, Syria and Libya. In Iraq, the West intervened massively. It was a disaster. In Libya, the West intervened in a limited way, and it was a disaster. In Syria, the West didn't intervene at all, and it was the biggest disaster of all. Now, I don't blame Obama and Clinton for getting the Middle East wrong, because as far as I can see, everybody gets the Middle East wrong. It's the Middle East. There is no solution. Doesn't mean you stop trying, but I just don't think we can get any partisan points out of who got the Middle East wrong. Everybody got it wrong.
Short point, I mean, this stuff is very complex. Every situation is different. It's got its own dynamic, and the only sensible way of approaching it is intelligently, case by case, with an appropriate set of criteria for how you deal with it. This is what worries me about a Donald Trump, frankly, because so many of these situations you can't anticipate. It's not a matter of proactive decision-making, it's reactive as situations explode around you. You've got to have the right instincts. You've got to have the right people if you're going to be able to steer a course through this and not make things much worse. So I don't accept that Obama has made anything worse than it might otherwise have been, but it's sure as hell possible that Trump might. And therein lies a big problem for all of us.
Well, I'm not feeling any better at all. And we do have to